philosophers per se. The main ones we'll cover will be St. Augustine or St. Augustine, and some Middle Ages with St. Anselm. We'll get into the argument for the existence of God, and some others that were pretty significant, and pretty much then focus on Thomas Aquinas is kind of the end of that. But they're all considered Christian, and so the question, of course, becomes, well, why did suddenly philosophy just shift into a Christian worldview, which, by the way, we might consider still pretty much the Western point of view. A lot of folks say that, we're not really Christian anymore, and the thing is that the basis for our civilization really seems to be a Christian point of view. One of the more famous ones is Bertrand Russell, who even wrote a book, Why I Am Not a Christian. And thinking about his life, he was really one of the most Christian people I can think of. So I know what his point was, but at the same time I disagree with him in a bigger picture. So why is Christianity? Why does Christianity become kind of the focus, and what is it really? And how does it tie into the other religions, especially the religions of Abraham? The religions of Abraham are considered to be Judaism, Islam, and Christianity. Right? So those three, and they all trace themselves to Abraham in a manner of speaking. I mean, because Abraham is the father of Isaac, and Isaac has sons that basically populate the Jewish tribes, the 12 Jewish tribes. He's also the father of Ishmael, the oldest son, actually, from Hagar, who is the father of the 12 Arab tribes. And then he even has another concubine named Ketur that is, I have no idea if he had sons or whatever by her, but when they write about it, it's kind of ambiguous because it says altogether he had fathered then 16 tribes of Arabs. And I don't know if it's 12 from Ishmael and another 16, or is it 16 altogether? I don't know. It was written ambiguously, and I didn't check with ChatGPT to find out what was the case. But Akhenaten is fascinating because Abraham is not a monotheist. There's other words for it, but basically he has a contract with one particular god, but it's in the midst of there being many gods. And it's a contract with that, a testament or an agreement with that God, that he would be loyal to that God, and that God would then protect him and his, families, etc. So Akhenaten is the one then that we think of as being the first monotheist. That's kind of interesting because I've had students say, well, but Adam was the first monotheist, because of course Adam and Eve in the garden are kind of an interesting story. It's not just a Jewish story. Adam in Hebrew means dust, and so in a sense, it might not really even be dust. It's more like kindling. So like God blew on this kindling and started the fire. So like when you're starting a fire, it blows into the kindling, and Adam is like, I guess, fire coming from this like blue spirit into the dust or whatever. And then from there, the story says that Adam needed a spouse, and so God created Lilith. How many have heard of that one? Right? Lilith, and the problem with Lilith wasn't behaving properly. She wanted to be on top. And that's like, wait a minute, no, we don't want Lilith. So then we ended up with Eve.
Wait, Eve's the second wife? Or the
According to
second?
some stories. Lilith is, it's actually kind of interesting, because, when you look at the story about Lilith, she's
Primordial
Lily,
human.
really, Lilith, and who was Harry Potter's mother?
Ooh.
I got into a fight with a minister over this once. No, Lily is not Lilith. But, they're both. Lilith is Lily is against Voldemort, of course. And if you think of it, the whole 7-book series is really Lily against Voldemort, and Lily wins at the end, which is
Through Harry?
through Harry. So Lilith, but Eve. Now, how did Eve get created?
Adam's rib.
Aha! How many have heard that? Okay, so apparently the scripture says it was a curved bone. And from what I understand, the rabbis, wasn't a rib. Because you notice, Adam, us, we still have all of our ribs. But we are missing a particular curved bone. All human males are missing a curved bone that most male mammals have. And that's called, well, locally we call it an oocyst.
I thought that's what you might have been implying, but I was sure that's
So, I don't know where they're getting that picture from. I have one at home. I almost brought it today just for this occasion. It's about this long. But if you look at, let's be more serious here and just go. Yes, the baculum. In fact, there's an argument called ad baculum. If you're, that's the give me the football, or I will thrash you to within an inch of your life, and that's called the ad baculum argument. But so most, not all. There are not, as you can see, there are some others that do not have a penis bone. But so this is the fun. This is one of those fun stories where you think, what was the main reason for the story? Probably because they were trying to explain why male human beings do not have one. And so that's just kind of a fun story. Absence in humans. Okay, so there you go. And how do you explain it, etc. So that's a fun story. So there's lots of fun stories over that. There's other things. Sargon the Great was born in a cave in Bethlehem. And when he was, there was all kinds of astronomical events that took place because he was so significant. At the time of the birth of Jesus, that cave in Bethlehem was a tourist shop where you could go and buy statues of Sargon the Great. So it wouldn't have been a vacant cave where people could stay and give birth again in the cave. But the story was arranged so that Jesus could have ended up being born in that cave because that cave was so significant. It's still a big tourist draw, although now it's not. I guess it is still a tourist shop, but now it's like a church where they have one area where you can look and you can see like a creche, that's supposed to be this place where Jesus was born, and so on. 3 different groups of monks run the place, and they've arranged so that they each have several days out of the week because of course that's where they get all their money from. So that cave has been a very profitable thing for quite some time. Another funny story, when the Magi, who are the magicians, really, the Zoroastrian magicians, they know that Jesus is due to be born, and so they see his star in the east, and they follow it. And what's funny is, of course, if you're coming from Iran to Bethlehem, that's going west. So these wise men went the wrong way, according to the way the scriptures, because they went east, right? Oh no, that's west. You know, and how do you explain that? Well, if the person who wrote the story was more in Europe, all of that over there is in the east. You know, so that kind of explains. Okay, but Jesus, by scholars, is considered to have been born in Nazareth, not in Bethlehem. The idea that the Romans wanted everyone to move around for some sort of census is crazy. The Romans kept really good records, and they never did that. They wanted to know where you were, not where you were born, and all that sort of thing. Plus, they didn't kill all the infants. You know, that's another story that, well, you know, so there's a whole bunch of stories that are clearly added to make Jesus a significant individual. And some of the things are not, go ahead.
Did they take the killing of babies from the Egyptians when they killed the, I think it was the Hebrews, I believe?
Now,
did they take that story from there?
That story could have, I mean, when you have a population that you want to control, that's something that actually is not even rare, I suppose. I mean, the Mayans, wasn't it the Mayans or the Incas? One of them, you know, had an altar where they would sacrifice children. It was an honor, you know, but why were they doing it? Because they had to control the population somehow. So who knows, but where the story came from, pretty interesting. But there's also relationships between the stories about Moses and Sargon the Great. So for example, Sargon the Great was also saved by his mother by being put in a little basket and floated down the river and rescued by the princess of the opposing side. And he was raised then as a prince. Moses was also put in a basket by his mother and floated up the river, I suppose, and rescued by the princess, the Pharaoh's daughter, and raised as an Egyptian. So you get an interesting situation where Moshe, is considered an Egyptian by folks like now this is a book by Freud. Some of my friends consider this to be Freud's best book, by the way, and it is remarkably short, which is nice, and maybe why they think it's his best book. So short. Oh my goodness, I remember in high school. How many of you had to read The Future of an Illusion in high school? Anybody? They don't do that anymore. I had that book for Father Hennigan, senior year of high school, and I came home with my books and I put them on the table and I went to the bathroom, and when I came back, my mom was furious and started smacking me. I don't want you reading Freud. And I looked at her with tears in my eyes and I said, "But Mom, it's Freud." And she stopped hitting me because she realized, oh, well, you have to read Freud. But she had started to look at it, and that's a really terrible book. It ruined me, actually, because at the time I used to see church steeples all over the place. I mean, I was raised in the Pennsylvania suburbs, and there's Lutheran, Methodist, all these church spires, the Catholic Church. I was Catholic. You had all these spires all over the place, and impressive buildings. And you read through, what you find out is that these are all phallic symbols. And once you read that, it's like permanently, I'm driving along, oh, that's another phallic symbol, and you feel ruined, essentially. But in his book on Moses, he argues that this is the origin of monotheism. Moses is perhaps the